Hello again and welcome to day 3 of the Call Tracking Metrics Academy. All right, let's go ahead and begin. As always, we have some quick legal and confidential information to cover. Every effort was made to ensure that the information in this presentation is complete and accurate at the time of today. However, whatever, it's subject to change, and we just ask that you please do not distribute this information. With that, we also have a few recommendations. One is that you log into your Call Tracking Metrics account. And we also recommend, if you have 2 monitors, to set those up so that you can view the presentation on one screen and your Call Tracking Metrics account on the other screen. All right. And if you are new to Call Tracking Metrics, we welcome you to participate in this webinar just as an attendee. But if you did want to follow along for the workshop portions of it, you could head over to our plans page and get signed up in just a matter of minutes. That's a fairly quick process. With that, we have a pretty full agenda today. Today is really themed attribution. So we're going to look at things like attribution, analytics, Google Ads, Bing, Facebook. So we have a lot of concepts to cover, but great content. So with that, welcome again. My name is Jessica Michaels. I hope everyone is excited to be attending today. We have probably just over an hour together. I try to keep it short, but yet very relevant and full of content. I'm proud to say that I've been a member of the team here at Call Tracking Metrics for just about 6 years. And I find marketing optimization and strategy to be exciting. And I'm hoping to drop some knowledge and spark some excitement in all of you today. Yeah, my background is actually analytics and marketing. So this is really my playground here. I tend to be so analytics and marketing focused that I actually monitor my heart rate during these presentations to see where it's higher, which means I'm nervous, which means I'm not as confident. So then I'll review what content I was covering during that time to see how I can be more relaxed next time. But anyways, enough about me. If you've attended any of my presentations today, you know I like to start with a few exercises just to make sure we're in a good place. So if you can both hear and see my screen, will you raise your hand in your Zoom panel? All right, I see hands going up, so that means we are in a good place. So I'm going to lower all of those. All right. In addition to that, we have both a chat and a Q&A box. Doesn't matter which one you use, but let me see. How about, what did you have for either lunch or breakfast? Let me know to let me know that you have your, you know where the Q&A and chat box is. If you have any questions during this webinar, just enter them into either the Q&A or the chat, and I'll address them as I see them. Or we also have time at the end of the webinar to address questions. So all questions will be addressed. So let's see. Now for lunch today, I actually had steak and potatoes, kind of the joy of working from home. I have access to my full kitchen. So let's see, I see some other people had a banana. That's a nice healthy breakfast. Someone else had an egg McMuffin. That sounds good. Oatmeal, not my favorite, but I know a lot of people like it. All right, I actually see a couple more coming in. Oatmeal, I had soup and a sandwich. That sounds nice. I know we're in all different time zones, so maybe we would have some people who've had dinner already, but welcome. Okay, well, it looks like we're in good shape. Looks like we can hear and see, and everyone knows where they can engage with questions. So let's go ahead and begin the webinar. All right, so in this first part, we're going to be looking at our kind of core concepts around attribution, as well as CTM, and how it all comes together. So the first, and I think kind of most critical part of this is to understand the 2 types of paid calls, right? So here we have what would be kind of a standard, Google Ads ad. As we see, we have 2 calls to action here. 1, if you click the ad, and 2, you can actually click a phone number to prompt an outbound call. So 1 ad and 2 calls to action. So if we were to click the ad, it would take us to something kind of like this, a landing page. Or if we were to click the phone number, it would bring us to a dial prompt. So really the big difference between the two, with one, when you click to a landing page, what's going to happen here is that Google Analytics tracking script is going to be on the page, as well as CallTrackingMetrics tracking script. So this session is going to be very, very tracked. While for a click to call, there is no session to track because they didn't hit your website. So with this one, there's not going to be a Google Analytics tracking script, as well as CallTrackingMetrics tracking script won't be there. So even though it is very commonly argued that, you know, it's one ad, so we should be able to use the same number, there's two completely different destinations for that call. So because of that, we actually handle those calls completely different. One is an on-site, which is going to have a session attached to it. One is off-site, which we have to handle a little differently by communicating with either Google Ads or Google Analytics. But to make it a little easier, I do have a short video which will help simplify this concept. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oh, I hear that there's no audio. Okay, let me try this again. I think it has to do with the way I share the screen. So let me go to, oops. Sorry about that. Let me try this again.
Welcome to CallTrackingMetrics training video. In this workshop, we're going to be covering the setup of CallTrackingMetrics integration with Google Analytics and AdWords. Before you begin, you must have user access to Google Analytics, admin access to CallTrackingMetrics. You must be using the same email address to log into both systems. The CallTrackingMetrics tracking script should be installed on your website. The Google Analytics tracking script should also be installed on your website. Google Analytics and Google AdWords should be synced and communicating. Lastly, auto-tagging needs to be enabled in AdWords. CallTrackingMetrics has two integrations for the two types of Google paid calls, Google Analytics and Google AdWords. The AdWords integrations tracks calls from click-to-call ads and call extensions, while the Analytics integrations tracks and attributes data from click-to-landing pages. When performing a search, it's common for ads to have multiple call to actions, like displaying a phone number to call or a link to click. When you click to the landing page, there will be a GCLID in the URL. This is Google's paid click identifier. It essentially acts as a unique receipt numbers for paid clicks. When you click to a landing page, CallTrackingMetrics tracking script is present, as well as Google Analytics tracking script. The two softwares match sessions data and share session data. While for click-to-call, Google AdWords uses a Google forwarding number, which forwards to a call tracking number, and the two systems match and pass data. Two types of paid calls, both reporting as conversions in AdWords.
All right, sorry about that audio issue at the beginning. Forgot to check a box. But some of the big takeaways from that is that, again, for a click to call, first a click to landing page, they're going to be handled separately. So those do need to be two separate tracking numbers, two separate tracking sources. But the positive side is that both of those will report as conversions inside of Google Ads. Also, in addition to that, we do need to make sure that auto tagging is enabled inside of Google Ads, but we'll be covering all of that in the live demo portion as well. Okay, so let's continue on with a little bit more of concepts around analytics and attribution. So in Google Analytics, there is a hierarchy. So there's going to be account, property, and view. Now CTM is going to be sending events into analytics, and we send that into the property level. So with that, it will flow into all the views depending on the filters that are set. So with analytics, like I said, there are different views. So one way that some people might think about this is we should always have a raw or an all-inclusive analytics view, but you might also have one, for example, for all your traffic from Maryland and one from all your traffic from Annapolis. So you might think that it would report like this, but sometimes inside of analytics, you might have all of your traffic just from Annapolis, so it might all line up. And really the takeaway from here is that the different views, depending on the filters, will either prevent our data from going in. So sometimes it looks a little wonky. So we always recommend viewing our data inside of analytics under a raw or unfiltered view. So some more analytics terminology that is good to know. Is an event. Well, one is an event is what we're going to send our calls, text, forms, and chats into analytics. And what those are is it's an action that takes place on the page. So examples of an event could obviously be a phone call. Some other examples might be something like a video view. Someone asks, can you use the script? Using Tag Manager? Absolutely. A lot of people add our tracking script using Google Tag Manager. So yep, we have events, which is what we're going to send our activities into analytics as. And then you can have a goal around those events. So that's really a benchmark. So one thing to keep in mind is that we send all of our activities into analytics. So whether the call is completed or even answered, that's going to go into analytics. So setting up goals around those events is a really nice way to help qualify what you want to actually count as our next term, which is a conversion. So that's going to be, when the goal requirement has been met. And, example could be, a call that was greater than 60 seconds in length. So here is what I like to call our 3 legs of communication. So this is in order to get our attribution and conversions, flowing into the 3 systems. So we want to make sure that CallTrackingMetrics is synced to Google Analytics, and that Google Analytics is synced to Google Ads. And then we have another integration where we can talk directly to Google Ads. So you want to make sure that all 3 of these platforms are synced and communicating to get that accurate attribution. And let's see, so we do have some tracking scripts. So we briefly touched on the CallTrackingMetrics tracking script on Monday. But anytime we're doing any type of session-based, attribution-based tracking, you definitely want to have this unique code on the page. Every sub-account that you have will have a unique code. So you want to make sure that you not only have the code, but the correct code. If you are sending data into Google Analytics, you want to definitely make sure that you have the analytics tracking code on the page so that we can match and sync that data together. Let's see, so some things that have happened that we have seen to be problematic is when you have old analytics running on the page. So here's a little history walk through Google Analytics tracking scripts. So, pre-2005, Google Analytics was actually a product called Urchin, which was purchased by Google. So that's what their tracking code was the Urchin. From 2005 to 2009, I always call this the Git. From 2009 to 2013, I call this one the Push, but different forms of their tracking. And now what they have is either called universal or global tracking. And it's a new script. And if you're not using it, I mean, analytics will tell you that it is 100%, you should do this. If you don't have it on the page, it actually kind of corrupts the data coming in. It overwrites it, which we'll be showing examples of that later today. Okay, so the next part we're going to talk about is attribution. So with CallTrackingMetrics, we use cookies. When you think of cookies, I might think of my grandmother's homemade cookies because they're the best in the world. But unfortunately, that's not the cookies we're going to be talking about. Cookies are going to be a little. I think of them as a little. What are they called? Hitchhikers from a dandelion. Something we just put into your browser, and we'll track how you get to that site for 30 days. That can be changed if you go under your tracking script and then cookies. And I saw somebody asked, where can you find the script? So it would be under the numbers tab, tracking script. The script will be there, and if you scroll down a little bit more, you can actually change the cookie duration. One thing that I always recommend is that you have your cookie durations between your different platforms lined up. So if you have it for 30 days in Google Analytics, you'll want to make sure that it's for 30 days in CTM as well as Google Ads. It'll keep your reporting consistent throughout the platforms. Okay, so we have different attribution models. So this is where things get fun and confusing. So Google Analytics has different attribution models than Google Ads, than CTM. So we're going to explore those. But first it asks the question, why do we have attribution models? So I actually have one more quick video, which will help explain the different attribution models and why we have them. So I'll be watching the chat in case this audio doesn't work.
Meet Emily. She's going to help us understand attribution. Like many of us, Emily spends her leisure time surfing the web. While on Facebook, she sees a sponsored ad for fancy red shoes and clicks the link. The shoes are nice, but a little pricey for her, so she doesn't end up making a purchase. Later on that day, she's still thinking about the shoes and revisits the website organically, but still doesn't make a purchase. A few days later, while on her favorite blog, she notices a remarketing ad for those same shoes and clicks the banner. She really wants those shoes, but decides she's still not ready to purchase. Later in the week, she receives an email notifying her that the shoes are on sale. She clicks the link in the email and purchases the shiny red shoes. There were 4 touch points on the path to making the sale, so which individual touch point should receive credit for the sale?
All right, so that's really an open-ended question. And I hear that all the time when I'm working with our clients. They're like, well, what do you think? And it really depends on your business model and your business objectives. But let's go ahead and explore some of the different attribution models. So let's see. So AdWords offers several attribution models. It looks like we have 5 here. So there's last click, which is going to give 100% of the credit to the most recent way the person came in. First click, which is going to give 100% of the credit to the first touch point. Linear is going to spread it out evenly. Position based is going to give 40% to both the first and last touch point, and then split the remaining between all the touch points in the middle. And then we have time decay, which is going to give more credit to the touch points closer to the time of the conversion. So Google Ads has 5 different attribution models. Well, then we have Google Analytics that was like, oh, let's step it up a notch and actually have 7. So they have last interaction, which again is going to give all of the credit to the last way they came in. Last non-direct, so that would be last way they came in, that wasn't direct, a paid way. last AdWords click, first interaction, which is going to be the first way they came in. Linear is going to distribute it evenly. Time decay is going to give more credit closer to the conversion, while position based is going to be the same as Google Ads, where it's going to give 40% to both the first and last, and then distribute the remaining between all the touch points in the middle. Now, where this gets fun is CallTrackingMetrics has two. So with us, we do both first and last touch. So we either give the conversion to the first way that they came in or to the most recent way they came in. And the reason we discuss this is because it's important to understand the difference, because if our system is reporting on last touch, but Google Analytics is reporting on first touch, and Google Ads is reporting on, say, linear, we're not going to see our data align between the platforms. It's going to look a little wonky, which is going to be expected. So it's not saying that you shouldn't use different attribution models. Each platform might have a different objective, especially here at CTM. Our teams, even in marketing, we have our analytics people, we have our ads people. So they live in different platforms, so they might have different objectives. So really, this is just important to know, so that if your data does look like it's reporting a little bit differently in each platform, it could just be the attribution model that is selected. Okay, so as stated in that video, you definitely want to make sure that you have auto tagging enabled. That's what's going to write in that GCLID, which is going to tell our system to swap for your Google Ads numbers. That's also what allows us to send offline conversions into Google Ads. So we cannot send conversions into Google Ads if this is not enabled. So what's nice is it's account wide. So once it's enabled forever, or unless somebody turns it off. But it is a set and forget setting. Okay. So next we're going to move on to exploring this inside of CTM. So let me switch my screen. I always say that I'm switching my screen so that if I don't, or I switch to something irrelevant, you guys can raise your hands and let me know that I am on the wrong screen. So sorry to talk through everything I do. Okay, so here we have the setup of the tracking numbers for ad extensions in Google Ads, which again, we do need to separate those. So in the last two classes, I did work out of a brand new account, but for the purpose of this class, I am working out of a demo account that I have so that we can actually see data rather than build it. So that's why it is a little different. So here you can see we have an ad extension tracking number. So it's assigned to the ad extension. And we have our Google Ads tracking numbers, which of course are assigned to the Google Ads source. And really the big difference between the two that we can see here is that you can see the ad extension doesn't have a target number because it is offsite. So we will not be swapping for this number. While with these ones, we're going to be looking for a target number on the page to replace with this tracking number. So we can also see over here that this is offsite, while these are on-site. Now I did want to show you the tracking source setup for this. So we go to numbers, tracking source. I'll go to create a new one. Again, we do have presets for our most commonly used tracking sources. I would always recommend starting with those, and then you can modify them if needed. So I can scroll till I find my Google Ads. So in this case, you'll notice that this is on site, which means we are going to be swapping. And what our software is looking for to swap is going to be that GCLID. So again, auto tagging is really important for multiple reasons. One, that's going to trigger the swapping, and two, it's how we're going to be able to send conversions into Google Ads. So we want to make sure that we have that present. Okay, so I'm actually just going to jump to this tab. So I actually put in a quick filter, which we talked about in yesterday's class, if anyone was attending, for my CPC traffic to show you what type of information we can get. So here's a call that came in from our Google Ads source. So right here, this is going to be telling us the landing page the user came in on. This is going to be the referring site. This is going to tell us the keyword that the user searched. So this isn't actually the keyword that you're bidding on. This is going to be the term that they entered into the search engine that generated your ad. Okay, we'll also tell you the likelihood of the match. So that's going to be referencing the likelihood of this session being given to this restricted user. We'll also tell you the medium and campaign. So this was a shopping ad. And anytime you see this little link icon, if you hover over it, you'll see that little pop-up comes. That's going to tell us that we are in fact linked to Google Analytics, and it's going to tell us the Google Analytics property that we're linked to. So that if you're saying, oh, I don't see my events in Google Analytics, right here, you can say, oh, we actually did send it and we sent it into that property. So maybe you're looking in the wrong place. So if you click anywhere in this box, it'll expand it to give you the enhanced view. So here we can see there is that GCL ID. So that's how it knew to swap for the Google Ads number. And here it's also going to tell us again what analytics property was detected on that page. As well as we're going to get the campaign information. We're going to get the ad group. We're going to get the keyword. Now in this case, this is a shopping campaign, and shopping campaigns aren't triggered off of keywords. So that's why it just puts a little star. It's going to put the source and medium, as well as where this person was geographically. We'll also let you know if there was any cookies identified on the page. This really comes in handy when it comes to talking about old analytics. When there's old analytics on the page, Google's tracking code writes in 4 cookies. So usually when I see that it says 5 cookies, it's usually an indicator that they're running old analytics, and you can actually look at those cookies. So I think that's really the value. But if you have multiple cookies in the page, it doesn't really affect things. It's just a clue that there might have been something wrong. Okay, so some other good things to know about this view here. So we also have the call ID here. So this is going to be unique to this call. That can be used in multiple places that we'll be showing later. If by chance you think that this call or that this session was wrong and maybe the likelihood was lower, you can check to see for other sessions, which would pop this out. And in this case, it doesn't look like there's other ones because we have a really high likelihood. But if there was a lower likelihood in other sessions that were probable, those would show up here so that you could actually say, don't use this one, use this one. So we do give you the ability to customize which one we actually attributed to that call. And then if you wanted to see even more information about this call, we could hit the details. And this is going to tell us, where the person came from, if we detected ad blockers, just a lot of information here. Probably more than we need. Okay. We also have a check analytics button. This is really handy if, again, we don't think we see this information inside of analytics. So this does a live lookup. So this is not only is this in analytics, we sent it, we detected it, it went in with the source and medium of Google CPC, it went in under the the action of Google Ads, it had a value of 17. Not only that, we sent 2 events for this one. So we can see all that information here and when the events actually went into Google Analytics. So little handy tools to let you know if this has all been set up properly and reporting properly. Okay, let's see. So I know I've been talking about events and analytics, but I know that analytics events aren't the most commonly used feature inside of analytics. So I actually have yet another quick video to explain events. So let's take a quick look at that.
Welcome to CallTrackingMetrics training video. In this workshop, we're going to be covering how CallTrackingMetrics sends events into Google Analytics. CallTrackingMetrics sends events into Google Analytics for every inbound call, text, and form. An event in Google Analytics can be broken up into 4 main components: category, action, label, value. By default, the category will be calls. Inside of CTM, there are several different ways to customize the category of an event. The action will always be equal to the name of the tracking source. The label is made of 4 parts. The label of the tracking number. If the tracking number isn't labeled, it will report as not set. Next is the tracking number that was dialed, followed by whether or not this was a first-time or repeat caller. Lastly, the unique call identification number. By default, the value refers to seconds of talk time. If you have call conversion events enabled, the value will be the entered conversion amount. Commonly, the category will be calls. The action will always match the tracking source. Here's an example of how a call sale event would report in Google Analytics. Here's another example of how an event could report in Analytics. To view the events in Analytics, select the Behaviors tab. From the Behaviors tab drop-down, select Events, Events Overview. The Event Overview will display your top-performing events in Analytics. Hopefully these terms are starting to look familiar. Category, action, and label. If you click into the Calls category, it will display the total number of reported calls. From here you can select the action. The action will display your calls broken out by tracking source. If you click into one of the event action, it will bring you to the label view for just that tracking source. The label will display the 4 components of the event label. These are the basic fields of an event in Google Analytics. However, if you want to view additional information, you can do that by adding secondary dimensions to your report in Analytics. I would recommend viewing this data under the label view. Remember that an event is not a conversion. To set up a call conversion, you'll need to create a goal in Analytics. Thanks for watching.
All right, now that we're all experts, I lost my tab. Now that we're all experts on events, let's look at the setup for this. Okay, so to get to the integration, we would come over to our navigation and we would go to Settings, Integrations. Now, one thing to note is that in order to access the integrations, you do have to be an admin in the account. So if you're in your account and you don't have the integrations option, it probably has to do with the user role. If you come up to your, I don't even know what we call this, your main controller here, it will actually tell you your role, but it's not telling me mine because I'm a super admin. So if you're ever curious what your role was, it would be listed there. Okay, so we're going to start with Google Analytics. Now, in this case, I'm already connected, so I'm going to go ahead and unlink so we can have the full process. So as you can see, if you're not actively linked, there's no options here. It might suggest linking, but what we want to do is say, let's connect to Google. It's going to ask you what user you want to connect with. When you're connected, you want to make sure you're connecting with the user that has access to the analytics property. It is fairly common we see people that connect with the, I lost my place, the wrong user. And then when they go to connect, there's nowhere to send the data. So we want to make sure that we allow access first to send data into your analytics. So right here, we're almost there, but not quite. Now, my individual user has access to a ton of analytics properties. So we want to make sure that I tell CallTrackingMetrics which property to send these events into. So in this case, I want to select my Coco Loco, and I want to do my all website data and hit Use Profile. Now, at this point, we are successfully connected. And we know that because we can see the name of the property we selected, the actual property code, and the user connecting analytics and CTM together. And then once we're connected, you'll see we have a lot of different options for how we want to send that data into Google Analytics. So by default, the first two toggles are going to be enabled. The first one is simply allowing us to send data into Google Analytics. The second one is allowing us to do that if it's an offsite activity. So it could be, you know, a call from a radio ad or maybe a billboard. Now, analytics standards design is for tracking, you know, website activity. So some people don't want to send their offsite data into analytics. No problem, you can simply disable that. If you don't mind sending offsite information into Google Analytics, you can leave it enabled. And we even give you the option down here to create a session to associate to that offsite visit. So this next option here is to send conversion events. So what that means, reference back here, is if you remember back to yesterday, if you were here, we were talking about scoring the activities, which gives us the ability to enter conversion amount and a star rating. So what that does is it would allow us to send an additional event into Google Analytics when a call is marked as a sale. So that way analytics is measuring not just your quantity, but the quality. So those will go into analytics as a separate category of call sale. Okay. So this next one is to send the events to the property linked to the activity. So what that means is it could actually override the default one. If our tracking code recognizes a different analytics on the page, it would divert from sending here, and it would actually send to the analytics code we recognize on that landing page. Let's see. So this next one, I actually would recommend enabling. It's to send the event categorized by activity type. And it's really just speaking into the growth of call tracking metrics. So by default, we send all the events into Google Analytics as calls as the category, because that's originally what we tracked. But now we do calls, text, forms, and chat. And with this disabled, those would all be summed together under calls, but enabling that is going to separate them out into different buckets, which I think makes your reporting a little easier to understand and a little cleaner. Like I've said before in earlier classes, I really like clean data. So this toggle here is a handy one. It's to help prevent duplicate events going to the same category, to the same web property with the same category. So it could be that you're scoring calls here, and with that, maybe one person says, oh, this was a $100 sale, and then somebody comes back and says, no, this was a $200 sale. So with this disabled, what would happen is that it would actually, it would send multiple events. So rather than updating that sale total, they would stack. So it would be 300. So by preventing duplicates, it's just going to help prevent some inflation from happening inside of your account. And there's other ways that you can automate sending events other than our standard integration, which could be from the use of triggers, which we'll be talking about on Monday, or even using your API. So this is just a nice fail-safe to make sure that you're not inflating your data inside of Google Analytics. Okay. And this option here is only offered on our marketing and contact center plan because it does use our automation, which is triggers. But what this would do is it would actually pull the cost of the click from Google Analytics and associate it to the call inside of CallTrackingMetrics. So this really ties into our ROI reports. So if you are utilizing call scoring, this could tell you, you know, this call cost you maybe $3 for this click, but you sold it for $20, so you know that you have a $17 profit. So pretty handy tool right there. Okay, and then we just have a few tools down here that should just check to see if we're actively linked. Check to make sure that analytics and ads are connected. This would just refresh the whole connection in case something got disconnected. So that is the general setup of sending the data inside of Google Analytics. So now let's hop over into Google Analytics and see how that data reports. So again, we send our activities into analytics as events. So to view our calls, text forms, and chats, we would head over to behaviors, events, and then we look at our event overview. So here we can see some of the different ways we can categorize these. Calls would be our standard way. We can do inbound calls. So this would indicate that this is just inbound calls, as well as we have chats. This would be the call sales, forms, and these would be inbound text messages. So if I wanted to view our calls, I could head over and click here. Now this is going to give us a really high level view. So this is going to say for our time frame, which I actually made quite big since this is a test account, that during that time frame we had a total of 676 calls with an event value of this much. Now in this case, the event value is going to be seconds of talk time. So this isn't actual dollars, this is seconds. And that would tell us that our average call would be 1,800 seconds. So if I wanted to break this down to a more granular level, I could look at the event action. So from here, this is going to be the tracking source. So this is my calls by my different tracking sources. So of my 600 or so calls, I know I've had 205 to purchase. I've had some to my Chocolatier magazine, my website source, my Google Organic, my omni-channel texting, my Google Ads, a Google referral, and so forth. So if I wanted to look at these at even more of a granular level, I could click into, say, my Google Ads. And this is going to break this down even further. So this is going to be the label of the tracking number. This is going to be the tracking number itself. And this is going to indicate whether or not this was a first time or repeat caller. And this is going to be the unique call ID. So if I actually wanted to look this call up inside of CTM, I could grab that ID and paste it into the search, and it would be able to pull up this unique call. Now, there's a lot more information attached to the event. It's just all buried under secondary dimensions. So if I wanted to look up something like the source and medium, I would just need to add that here. And here I can see that these are Google CPC, which is what I would hope to see for my Google Ads source. So maybe I want to get a little bit more granular and I want to see what actual keywords were used. Oh, these are all not set. The problem with my demo accounts. I can see things like the campaign, but I don't think those are going to show. Let me go back. See if we have some keywords here. Oh no, I went for shopping. Try one other place. So Facebook, see if these have them. Yeah. Now, but if you did have it, it would report, we could show the campaign. So all of that information that we have here, all of that will report as a secondary dimension that can be pulled and split up inside of your reporting. Right, okay, so now that we have all the information, actually one more thing I wanted to show you here. With our call sales, now these are the ones that have been marked as a conversion with that entered sale amount. So in that case, these are actually reporting sale values. So all other cases, they're reporting in seconds of talk time for the value. But in the case of a call sale, that is going to be the actual value that was entered into that sale box. Okay. So now that we understand where the activities are reported inside of analytics and how we can slice and dice it. The next thing we probably want to do is create some goals around that. So to do that, you'd have to head over to your admin panel. So again, you'd have to be an admin inside of the property, and we'll go to goals. I'm going to go to one that I already have created. We'll just say this one, why not? Now, when building these, sometimes people have these options for the templates. If you see them or not a big deal, because we're just going to select the custom. For the type, it should be an event, because hopefully I've made it very clear that we send our activities from CTM into analytics as events. So the next thing we want to do is build our goal. So these terms should also start to look familiar. So we have category, action, value, and label. And this is where it's really nice way to qualify what you want to count as a conversion. So I'm a big fan of copy and pasting, just because analytics can't compute human logic. So if there's a lowercase c, that's going to break the logic. If the S is missing, it wouldn't report. So you really want to make sure it's an exact copy of how it reports. And as well as you have the option to do calls or inbound calls or call sales. So we want to make sure that those are all lined up. But this right here is actually all you need to have every call count as a conversion. You can leave these blank, which would mean that we're going to have this goal count for every call that comes in. Or you have the option to fine tune that goal. So I might want to say Google Ads. So now this would only complete for a call to our Google Ads tracking source. If I wanted to take it even further, the label is made up of the tracking number, as well as whether or not it's a first time or repeat caller. So because it has different aspects, we couldn't say equals to, but we want to say a regular expression. And with that, I could say first dash call, because that's how it reports. So then now this would only report, I think it's actually a caller, for a first time caller to your source of Google Ads. And here we can fine tune it even further by saying maybe greater than 180. So then we're going to say that this call had to be over 3 minutes long. So again, the reason why I think that's valuable is that a call, we're going to send all the calls in. So whether it was a wrong number, missed call, maybe left a voicemail, I think 3 minutes is probably longer than a voicemail would go, but every business has their own objective. I've actually seen some of our clients that don't do greater than, they do less than, and they might say something like 600 to say if this call was over 10 minutes, it probably wasn't a sales call, maybe it was a support or maintenance call. So there is really no right or wrong way to build your goals. You just want to make sure that they're reflecting your business's objectives. Now, the last little piece here worth noting is to use the event value as the goal value for this conversion. Now, remember that this value is seconds of talk time, and I personally don't think that seconds translate to dollars. I mean, maybe it does in certain industries, but I wouldn't think that it does. So I typically have this turned off, but it is going to require you to put in a numeric value. So one use case is just put 1. So when you see that your conversions have a value of 12, you've had 12 of them. Or if there's an average value for a lead in your business, you could put that in there. But just know that this, if is enabled, is going to mark however long the call was as dollars. So whichever one works best for your business objectives. Okay, so that's really the analytics portion of this. Now, you could import these goals from analytics into Google Ads and have conversions going that way, which is one option, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or we have an additional integration with Google Ads, which is our Google Ads Direct Connect. So let me come here. We actually have 2 different ways that we communicate directly with Google Ads. With this one, how it works is that we're actually going to connect to the Google Ads Manager. Now, what's really handy about this is that we're connecting at the agency level. So at the click of a button, we can actually connect all of our Google Ads accounts to all of our CallTrackingMetrics accounts. And what's really nice with that is we can actually do an automatic matching, and it would identify that, okay, this one matches up with this one, which matches up with this one, so that you don't have to go into each of your individual sub accounts and link them all one at a time. So that's a pretty exciting feature about this one. So some other features built into this is it's going to give you the option if you'd like to let Google Ads control the attribution or Google Analytics. So you have the option to say, who do we want to be in control of the attribution for this call? So that's what this is going to indicate. Now, the way that we communicate sending conversions is with the use of triggers, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. I'm going to jump over it for a second. We do have a log, which is really handy. So with the log, it's going to show you all of your calls that are coming in, the call IDs, and if those calls went into Google Ads as conversions. If they did, then we wouldn't see an error message, but if it didn't, we would know why. So in these cases, these were offline calls, or they came in as invalid. So somebody said you should warn customers that Google Direct Connect doesn't support multiple CTM accounts feeding into single Google Ads account. So partially true. So let me actually show you this. So let me read this again. That customers that Google Ads Direct doesn't support multiple CTM accounts feeding into a single Google Ads. So we can actually accomplish that. Now, right now, I have 3 different Google Ads accounts feeding into one CTM account. The other way about what the person just messaged me is the opposite, to have multiple CTM accounts go into one Google Ads account. Now we can accomplish that by adding additional users. So what we would do here is we can say link another account, and we would actually select the same user. In this case, I'm using this user. And it's going to do a little dance. Do a little dance. And so right here, this may look like I've disconnected, but what I actually did is I added additional view. So now I can see I can actually switch the user, and each one of these users are a separate connection. So let me switch back to, we'll say the first one. Oh, it wasn't the first one. It must have been this one. Nope. These. No. Can't find it. Is this one? No. Well, what it's doing is it's adding an additional connection. So with these, I can come into this one, this Coco Loco account here, and say go into, and then type here Coco Loco, and then hit update mapping, confirm. And you see this one is 3. See up here, 3. I'll write it down so I don't forget. 3026. So I have Coco Loco and Coco Loco. Now, if I wanted Coco Loco to also go into Coco Loco Pasadena, I can switch into this one, which I am already connected. And so now in this case, that Coco Loco and Coco Loco Pasadena are both feeding into it. I think I did that backwards. So I'm confusing myself with this, but what this is doing is it's creating different views of connections. So you can have multiple connections which are layering on top of each other, not actually switching back and forth. So hopefully I explained that so that you can have either way you want, whether it be multiple Google Ads accounts feeding into one CTM account, or multiple CTM accounts feeding into one ads account. So it's just a matter of having the different connections, which is multiple connections, not switching, which is where the confusion usually comes in. Okay, so something else that's pretty handy with this integration is we have a diagnostics report. And what this will do is it'll actually, this is a test account, I don't really get some real good data here, but it will tell you, this is us connecting to Google Ads, and it will actually be able to tell you if your landing pages, if they're optimized for call tracking. Now, standard everything we've done is about, giving you information to optimize your Google Ads accounts. Well, this is a little bit backwards, where we're going to tell you, okay, you have this landing page, but we don't have the tracking code on the page, and there's no tracking number displayed. So CallTrackingMetrics isn't actually tracking these pages. While these pages here are optimized for call tracking, and we're showing, the source of Google Ads. So we'll actually also be able to tell you your average cost per call, how many clicks are coming in, and stuff like that. So this is a pretty cool report right here. I'm going to hop back over here. Okay, so that's how we can link the two. Now the next step is we want to actually send, our calls into Google Ads. So to do that, we use triggers. And these are going to be pre-configured for you when you connect them. So we're actually going to be talking about triggers in great depth on Monday's class next week. So I'm going to kind of breeze over this. But what's really nice about this is that it's going to do all the work for you. So you can take the route of going through analytics and creating the goal and then importing that goal into Google Ads. Or you can use our workflows, and here you can set the criteria. Maybe you want the talk time to be over 60, and maybe you want to make sure that we're only sending in your 5-star calls. And what's even nicer is we're going to create the conversions for you inside of Google Ads. So you can set your criteria, and then we'll automatically map them to these conversions that we're going to create for you. And if you don't want to use the conversion we've created, no problem. If you click here, it'll actually give you a drop down of all the other conversions inside of your ads account that we could map to. So we'll create one, or you can use one that you have pre-existing. So pretty cool with that, as well as we can use tokens. So if you wanted to put the actual value in, you can customize it that way. And you can create all sorts of rules here. This is just an example. So you can do ands, you can do ors, lots of fun stuff that you can do with this. Okay, so with that, let's actually hop over into Google Ads, and I will show you a few things in here. So inside of Google Ads, the first thing we want to make sure is that auto tagging is enabled. So we want to go to our settings. I'm going to go to our account settings, and this is where we're going to see auto tagging. So we do have that enabled. Now, something else I would recommend if you're going to be tracking ad extensions and click-to-call is that you have call reporting enabled. So what that's going to do is provide the Google forwarding number. So with that, and then Google's going to dynamically replace that with their number. And that's how we know that how we can get that attribution data and send conversions into ads, because we have the call and they've tracked the call by replacing our number. Okay, so if we want to see the conversions, we come over to our conversions tab. And here is the ones that are created for us. So we're going to have, actually I think it's these two, calls from CTM or call only calls from CTM. These are going to be imported from clicks and calls, because these aren't actual Google conversions. They're from a import, but we're using our API to send that data back and forth. Now, if you wanted to import your conversions from Google Analytics, you can do that by hitting the add conversion. and then we would say import, select Google Analytics, and then you would just find the conversion that you would want to import. So we can just say this one, for example, and then we're done. So then that's going to create a full circle conversion. Where'd it go? Oh, I have the where? Here I actually have a couple. So as calls come into CTM, they'll go into analytics as events. And then if those events meet your goals requirements, then they'll come in here and report as a conversion. So that's one way you can do it. The other way you can do it is, use the Google Direct Connect, where we'll create those conversions for you. We'll create that trigger for you. So as the calls are completed, if they meet that trigger's requirements, then they'll come in here and report as conversions. Okay. Now I know that is like data overload. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to type them in. We've got two more pretty quick topics to cover, and that's going to be Bing and Facebook. So let's go ahead and jump into that. And I'll leave that up just in case we get any questions regarding it. So I'm going to head over to our integrations, and then we have Bing. So our Bing integration is pretty straightforward. It's working very similar to, oh, it's not Bing anymore. I have to get out of that habit. Microsoft Advertising. So the way it works, again, is we're going to connect to the user. Once you're connected to the user, just like Google Ads, then you're going to select, which account you would like to connect. We'll save that. What's nice is it's going to give you a handy drop down of all of your offline conversions. So these are the only ones we can map to. So we would just say, all right, I'm going to send them in as leads. You have the option to, put a default value, because just like Google Ads or Analytics, you have to have a value. Maybe it's 1, maybe you have an average value of a sale. You have the ability to automatically send the conversion. So for every Bing call, it will go in, or you could disable that. If you disable that, then you'd go through probably the trigger route, which would give you a lot more flexibility in customizing when you want to send it into Bing as a conversion. We also give you the ability to send those call sale conversions into Bing. So anytime you would score a Bing conversion, we would send that into Bing as you would actually have another drop down where you can decide which offline conversion you want to send it into. So very similar to Google, in order for us to send conversions into Google, there has to be that GCL ID. Well, with Bing, or I'm sorry, Microsoft Ads, pretty similar. There has to be that MS Click ID. So pretty easy to enable that. This is Google. What we would do is we'd go into our Bing conversion goals. Now here I already have some created, but if you haven't done it before, you would just create a goal, and for names, say test goal. We would say offline conversions for our goal type. And once you create one goal with the offline conversion as the type, then it's going to write in the MS Click ID into the URL of all of the landing pages, just like Google Ads writes in that GCL ID. So that's how we'll know to swap, and that's how those conversions will flow in. Now, Bing doesn't offer conversions for ad extensions, so it's a little bit more limited, but that's really on the Bing side. But this is a pretty straightforward setup. So the next one we have is Facebook. So with Facebook, very similar. You want to connect to the user. Once you connect to the user, you're going to want to select what business account you want to connect to. So very similar to the other two platforms. This gets a little different than the other two platforms, because from here, we actually have to connect on the Facebook side as well. So on the Facebook business partner, we need to be added as a business partner. So we have our business partner ID right here. So we'd want to copy that. Here we go. Let me go into my test account. So always changing the interface inside of here. So we come to our partners. Now in this case, I'm already connected, but if I wanted to add a partner, I would paste that in and say, look it up, and say add. Oops. Next. And then you would want to give us access to your offline event sets. And then you want to say what event set you want the events to go into. So you could think of this as different buckets. So it might help if you create a bucket just for call tracking metrics beforehand. We could send it into both or one or the other, or however many you have. And then you simply want to give us access. So we would say, here we go, and save changes. Yeah, I didn't think that would work because I'm already connected, which we can see I'm connected in here. Now, one of the things I like to point out about this integration, it works very similar to our other platforms like Google and Bing, but a little bit different, is with Facebook. They have a lot more privacy restrictions. So Facebook isn't even going to attempt to match an event that we send them until it can be hyper anonymous. So what I mean is if I actually come into my offline event sets, I think I have to go in a different way. There we go. Oh, look, everything's different again. Let's show later. Let it load for a second. I don't have any. I'm going to switch accounts. Well, there's actually a few. We'll go into this one. Into our real account, get a peek inside. Ooh. Which one? None. Ah. Ooh. It's hard to demo this stuff. Real information and fake accounts. I believe we had some information here. All right, now in this case, we can see that we do have a fair amount of events coming in. Whole view is different. But what happens if within about a 7-day period, if you don't have around 1,000 events coming in, Facebook isn't going to try to match a user to that event. They need it to be extremely anonymous. So what that means is typically what we want to have happen here, right, is we want to see these events go into Facebook's ad platform and see them as offline conversions. But unless it's anonymous enough, it's not going to try to make that match, so that you can't identify the person who actually did that converting activity. So the reason that I point this out is that this is our automated integration, and automation is great, right? Because it's kind of set and forget. But with Facebook, it doesn't work exactly like that. It's going to be a lot more, you have to meet this minimum threshold, which unfortunately in their documentation, they don't say exactly where it is, but we say the magic number is somewhere around 1,000 events in a 7-day time frame. So if you're not meeting that threshold, that is okay. In that case, the best way to send data into Facebook is going to be doing a manual export. And we did talk about exports yesterday. And if we come here, we can see we actually have a Facebook offline conversion export. And that's going to format your export to match the Facebook format. So you could just export and upload. And what this will allow you to do is to, as long as the Facebook cookie duration, so if your cookie duration is for 30 days, you could all at once import the last 30 days worth of data in one big export and upload, rather than sending these kind of scattered events all over the place. So what I've seen a lot of customers be a lot more successful with is doing it this way if you do lower volume, because again, the end goal is to see these as conversions in the ads platform, but they're not going to report unless it's anonymous enough. So if you're doing about 1,000 calls a week, excellent, you're going to be fine. If you're going to be way under that, the odds of those calls actually reporting in Facebook's platform as a conversion is going to be pretty unlikely. So doing it the manual way is very much an effective workaround for less volume customers. So I believe we say add event. Nope. It changed everything on me. But you can upload them. I haven't played with this new interface, so now I'm not so confident about where that is. Try going in one more time. Yeah, upload. So this is how we would do it that way. So that does complete the presentation today. We covered a lot of material, from general understanding of attribution and how it communicates between CTM, analytics, ads. We talked about our analytics integration, setting that up. We talked about our Google Ads Direct Connect and setting that up. We went over Bing and Facebook. So with that, does anyone have any questions? I know this is a lot of content today, so I'm going to give you guys just a couple of minutes, see if I see any questions coming in. I'd be happy to address them. Somebody asked, can we get a copy of this recording? Absolutely. So I am uploading these the next day in the support hub. Inside of there, we have a recorded training tab. If you select that, then we can, you'll be able to access the recordings. Yesterday's is already up in there, as well as Monday's, and I'll have this one there by tomorrow morning. There is an older copy already in there. Content just changes as our product is constantly evolved. So I will add that one. I'll add this one. But great question. Let's see. I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. So thank you all for participating today and listening to me talk to myself, it feels like, but I actually have a decent crowd. I think there was about 25 of you today. So thank you for participating. We are going to be picking up again on Monday. We're going to be going over our marketing tools. So things for agencies. We're going to look at a lot at our automation tools. And then next Tuesday, we're going to look at our contact center tools. So we're going to have some great features we'll be covering, such as our forms. We're going to look at our new chat feature. We're going to look at our agency dashboards. We're going to look at sub accounts, ways to personalize your account colors and branding. So we still have a lot of content to cover. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, so thank you all so much for your time today, and enjoy the rest of your week, and I hope to see everyone on Monday.